Okay. All right. So by now, it should have started recording. So I'd like to
Yes.
say once again, thank you everyone for joining into this session. We'll be taking about 2 hours of our time listening to our seasoned professionals, not just listening. I'm hoping that this will be a very interactive session where we'll also give opportunity for, the participants to unmute their mic and also speak. However, I would only give you the cue when we're ready to do so. To provide some background on the meeting etiquette, you're all attendees. I am also an attendee. I'm hoping to learn a lot from today's virtual roundtable, and you have a better control of how you want this session experience to be for you. So I would like to indulge us to keep our microphones on mute when we're not speaking. I had earlier mentioned that I would like for this session to be as interactive as possible. So I would endeavor us to always stay on mute unless we have been asked to speak before we unmute our microphone. There are two ways in which we can ask questions. One is through the chat box. So please use the chat box and post any questions that you may have for our seasoned professionals. The other option is to use the raise your hand feature. The Microsoft Teams has a raise your hand feature. If you would like to ask your question personally, you could raise your hand, and then when we're ready, we will point you out to unmute your microphone and speak. Please, until you're asked to unmute your microphone, do not unmute your microphone. Also, with regards to video, only our panelists will be sharing their video in this session. So please, let's turn off our videos so we do not cause distractions for others. Also, with respect to staying focused in this session, I would like us to ensure that we're in a place where we have minimal distractions, very quiet, to enable us all really gain from this session, as our panelists have taken out time out of their business schedule to be with us. So my name is Ezinne. I am your host for this session, and I have with me Princess Ofor, who is also the co-host for this session. I will be making sure that we have a very interactive session today. Before I hand over to our panelists to introduce themselves, I'd like to take us quickly through on the agenda for today. Like I said earlier, we'll be spending 2 hours of today interacting together. First, I've said welcome to everyone. Next, right after this agenda, we'll be meeting our panelists. They're going to tell us more about themselves so we get to know them better. And right after that, we'll hear from Ihuaku Ugwu, one of the panelists who will be taking us through on how to prepare to enter into the oil and gas industry. And it's just going to be interactive. You've submitted a series of questions when you registered. Those questions are going to be addressed in the panel session, and we'll just try to make this session as interactive as possible. I would still like to reiterate the need for us to maintain, to adhere to the meeting etiquette. Let's stay on mute and switch off our cameras. So thank you. At this point, I would like to invite the panelists to join us and introduce themselves, starting off with Mrs. Oghogho Effiom. Oji, over to you, please.
Okay, thank you very much, LSC, and I want to use this opportunity to thank and to welcome all our participants today. My name is Oghogho Effiom. As you could tell from what LSC says, most people call me OG by my short initials. But by way of introduction, I'll start by saying that I'm the Lagos section chair for the current board year. So in terms of the facility, all the events that you've been having from SPE, this is coming to you courtesy of this particular board year. It's been a very exciting one for us to date. So how did I start out? Can you please go on mute, please, if you're not speaking? Right, thank you. So how did I start out? I started out with a BSc in geology from the University of Benin. I'm also an AAPG certified, as the American Association of Petroleum Geologists certified geologist. I have a master's in asset integrity management from the Robert Gordon University. And then after schooling and all, I joined the oil industry almost immediately after, and worked for a number of years with Halliburton as a software support consultant. And then after that, I joined Shell as a deepwater geologist. I've done that for many years, and becoming, the associate subject matter expert for the seismic feasibility and interpretation. More recently, though, I've moved away from the core technical roles into more integrative business type, project management type roles, and I'm currently a front-end development manager, development planner for deep water and shallow water Nigeria. In terms of SPE, I have quite a long history with SPE and my volunteerism. I've got a regional award in 2020 for SPE as well for some of the work that I've done there. There are also other volunteerisms that I've also contributed to in the past. Like you talk here about the NIACE conference, you might hear about the Oloibiri lecture series and so on and so forth. In my personal time, I have a husband and 2 children. My kids are teenagers now, so yeah, so it's been a very long and fruitful career, which I hope to share with all of us here. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Oji, and would now hand over to Rita to take us through on her own journey so far.
Hi everyone, welcome. This is Rita Esuru Okoroafor. My own is more of a story, but I would like to start by saying that when I was 13, I lost my dad, and coming from a family that was predominantly females, they said we should all drop out of school. We shouldn't go to school. That we could either get married and make money, or go and sell something. That ladies are not meant to go to school. My mother found it very difficult, but she tried to make all ends meet to ensure all her daughters went to school. And I was lucky to have, gotten into the university to study something that I enjoyed doing. Now, I started getting involved with SPE as an undergrad, even serving as the VP. But something key that happened was in 2000 when I decided to write a paper for the SPE student paper contest. And then when I won that contest and they looked at the quality of my presentation, they decided for the first time that Nigerians will be able to participate at the international level. And so that is the turning point in which we started having people from Nigeria participating in the SPE International Student Paper Contest. After that, after I graduated from school in about 2001, you know how it used to be in Nigeria. You spend about a year before you go for NYSC. So I basically had nothing to do. There was no source of income because you can't work without your NYSC. But I got an amazing offer. Somebody offered me 1 million naira to be his mistress and just have a child for him. And then I looked at my life and I said, is this what I wanted to do for the rest of my life? Just servicing a man, that's all. And it was a very tough decision, especially coming from a poor background, coming for the fact that I didn't have any money or it wasn't looking like there was a source of income. But I said I didn't believe that that was what I was meant to do with the rest of my life. And I turned down that offer. And no sooner than that, after I finally did the NYC, I joined the Institute of Petroleum Studies, where I had my MSc immediately after I graduated and joined Schlumberger. So I joined Schlumberger in 2004. In 2008, I got married. And if you look at the slide here, I put a couple of things. I put 4 children, 2 books. I have received SPE regional awards for young member outstanding service and reservoir dynamics and description, and the International Award for Young Members Outstanding Service Award. And why I put it under, gotten married is because all that I have achieved thus far is due to the tremendous support from my husband, and he's believing me. He's someone that if I say I want to sell periwinkle, he will say, go ahead, I will support you. So I'm just putting it out there that, we all need people who support us and encourage us and believe in us, because it makes a lot of difference. Well, I'm not surprised at myself, but one day I decided that I was going to leave Schlumberger to start my PhD, which I did in 2017. And but before I left as the first Nigerian female principal reservoir engineer. It's something that had not been achieved before by any Nigerian female, and I just wanted to put it out there for females to know that, look, you can achieve anything that you want to achieve. And I left and I've gone, and I'm currently working on my PhD at Stanford University. I am a very active SPE volunteer. Since then and now, I am very passionate about young people fulfilling their potential. While I worked, I did both technical and non-technical roles, and I'm proud to say that I have excelled at all the things that I did. I have written several technical papers, which is something I love doing. My favorite co-author is Ezinne Nnebocha, so she'll even talk about herself soon. I have 2 patents that have been granted, and I still look forward to achieving more. And outside of all the technical things that I do, I just love cooking. If my second office is the kitchen, I love dancing. Once you just play the music, I'm ready for you. And I am very passionate about writing. I have published 2 books, and I have some that I'll work on after my PhD. And so that's all about me. Thank you.
Wow, Rita, thank you so much for that inspiring story. Indeed, there are no limitations in life. Even your background, it's no limitation. Only yourself, can limit yourself. So, thanks a lot, Rita, for sharing that. And we'll move over to Ezinne. Please go ahead.
Hi, Elsie. Thank you very much. Rita, I know Rita very well, and I'm very happy that she spoke before me. So we actually met each other in Uniport. So I read petroleum engineering. I graduated in 2004. So even my school journey is a story for another day. But growing up, I never thought I wanted to do petroleum engineering. So I thought I wanted to be a medical doctor. And you know how it is being traditional in Nigeria, right? Your parents typically are pushing you as you're female, you look like you're a bit smart, so you need to be the medical doctor in the family. And this is what, so when I got into Uniport, I was trying to do a pre-med in microbiology, but after about, I had actually finished 2 years, and I was already in the first class, and I just knew that it wasn't for me, right? So I changed to petroleum engineering, and I started my second year again. But I graduated in 2004 for petroleum engineering as the best graduating student. Before I graduated actually from petroleum engineering, from when I did my internship, right, I got offered a full-time job. In fact, it was so interesting then because our IT was 6 months, and there was a strike there was one of those crazy strikes in the Nigerian system. So I ended up staying longer. And by the time I finished, working for the company for about 9 months to 12 months, I was so into the system. They were so dependent on me as an intern to run the whole department. And the MD, who's a British guy, actually offered me a job at the time. And they offered me to leave school, not do my final year because I was in 4th year at the time. And they asked me, overseas people can, go to school part-time. This is very good, very good offer and very good money for you. right? But and honestly, it was very tempting. As being a student, you know how things are, right? And no matter the amount of pocket money you have, it's not like I came from a home whereby I was given so much money. No. So when you have that kind of offer and being offered to be paid good money, you know, in USD, it was very tempting. But I didn't take the offer, so I went back to school. I finished my final year. But what I agreed to them was I was working 2 days a week. So my final year was really crazy, you know, and I don't know where I got the strength and the maturity from at the time, but I would spend 3 days, Monday to Wednesday, doing because we had just 4 courses in final year. And then on Wednesday evening, I would go to town to Transamadi to my brother's house. And then on Thursday, Friday, I would work Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday back in school. So this was how my journey started. The minute I dropped my pen and paper, I wrote my final exam. That week, I packed my things and I started full-time employment even before I did my youth service, right? So in 2004, I started working with a Moscow as the company, the same company I did my internship because I had been working with them, right? So I just continued my job, right? And they do like equipment inspection and testing, you know, but that wasn't petroleum engineering. And I was asking myself how I managed to, you know, deviate this much. But I was making very good money and I was calling the shots and I was happy until I met someone who actually asked me to write the Schlumberger job test, you know, in 2007. So that was how my career started in Schlumberger. So from 2007 till date, I've been working in Schlumberger. I started in Nigeria. I moved to Angola in 2012 in production. I did production technology, reservoir engineering, stimulation. In 2015, I worked on a project in Abu Dhabi and Kuwait. And then I came back to Nigeria during the downturn in 2015 as the completions domain champion. And then in 2019, last year, I moved back to Angola as the production domain champion for Sub-Saharan Africa. Okay, so this is my story. I've been involved in SPE in various ways, although I probably like to do more, but I guess my mobile life has also made it very challenging a bit, you know, but I typically have done the nice technical paper reviewer. So I review technical papers that are submitted for submission from 2015 to 18. The SP Focus Symposium 2017, I was on the panel. I was on the Marginal Field Workshop. I was the co-chair in 2015 and 2016. And as Rita said, we've done several technical papers together, right, in SP and several conferences. So my key things is to work hard, play hard. Learning is a lifelong process. You cannot finish it today. As I speak with you, if you look on my table, you will see a petroleum engineering book. I always have books around me. Maximize any opportunity that you have. Don't wait for tomorrow. This course and online training was a good opportunity for people. Some chose not to participate, some chose not to listen, but some maximize the opportunity and gain something. And finally is to keep your family and friends close. When the chips are down in the oil industry, all that you have is your family and your friends. If you focus so much on your career and you lose that fundamental, you're probably going to end up very unhappy in the future. Okay, so that's it for me. Thank you very much.
Well, Ezinne, thank you so much for sharing that great insight. So we'll just move on to the final speaker. Definitely not the list. That would be in the person of Ihuaku. So Ihuaku, please go ahead and go ahead with your introduction, please.
Thank you, LSC and ladies, for sharing. On my side, I always wanted to be a programmer. I actually studied computer science in the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, and having a first class, I thought, okay, I'm going to go into this geek world and do all the geek stuff, right? But and after NYIC, I actually had a programming job where I worked for a company that supplied bank software, right? But then in 2005, I stumbled into the oil and gas. Actually, I joined a group of friends to apply and attend job interviews, Schlumberger job interviews. And then in July 2006, I started an amazing journey. First, I started in the Middle East, working as a field engineer in the Arabian deserts and the Arabian seas. And from Qatar, I transferred to the US, where I became a technical instructor. So as a technical instructor, I taught, I mentored, and I molded young engineers in their journey in the industry, right? And after that, I came back to Nigeria, Port Harcourt, actually, to be a human resource manager for the drilling group then for the entire West Africa. And since then, I have worked as a recruiter. I have also worked as organizational transformation process manager for the human resources function for Sub-Saharan Africa. So right now, I'm the employee support and engagement manager for Nnebocha in Sub-Saharan Africa. And it has been an amazing adventure. I'm going to share more about it in my presentation in a few minutes. And thank you for joining and listening to us. We can't wait to hear your questions and answer them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ihuaku, for sharing that. Indeed, and I mean, to our participants, you'll see that these are amazing women with different experiences. Their journeys have been totally different, and we're looking forward to hearing from them. And it's great to see that we have an all-female panel. So this is really, really great. Yay! We're taking over the world. All right. So without much further ado, I would like us to go straight into Ihuaku's presentation on preparing to enter the oil and gas industry. 3 things you must do to strive in the industry. So Ihuaku, would you want to share? Okay, great.
LSC, can you see my slides? You're on mute, I can hear you.
Okay, yes, we can see
I can see your slides, yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so thank you, ladies, and thank you, LSC, for that inspiring introduction. I'm just here thinking that if I were 22 again, I would do this all over, just listening to all of us speak about our journeys. Good afternoon, everyone. It is my pleasure to present to you the 3 things you must do to thrive in the E&P industry as you prepare to begin your career. So as we go through this presentation, the host has already told us if you have any questions, please type them in the chat section and we will answer them during the Q&A session. I acknowledge that a significant number of us are still students or have very little experience in the industry. So let me start with this quote by Albert Hubbard, who was a writer, a publisher, a philosopher, and also an artist. He believed that we could all have fulfilling lives if we work to become, not to acquire. I remember that when we were in the labor market just after university, it was all about getting a job and making so much money. And the oil and gas industry at that time was one of the most sought after industries, right? So whether you feel as though you are on the right path or not, it's very important that at this time you figure out what a career in the energy industry will help you become. We know that the E&P industry, the exploration and production industry, the energy industry, the oil and gas industry, they provide many, numerous career opportunities, whether it is onshore, offshore, or even traditionally in the office. So before I go to my next slide, I would like us to type in the chat section what we would like to become, especially for those of us who haven't really joined the industry.
What about for those of us that have been here but still have aspirations to do other things?
Okay, OG, go ahead. There's so much
I'm going to type mine. Indeed.
Thank you. Interesting. Very interesting comments. Thank you for everyone that shared. Before I go into my presentation proper, I would like to sort of summarize what is happening in the E&P industry right now. We know that it is facing a lot of disruptions, right? And these disruptions affect what the industry does, how it does it, and its potential to transform for the future, right? So there are 3 main trends that will impact the future E&P industry business models. And they are first, the lower oil price environment, and that results in shrinking margins. We also have changing energy mix towards natural gas and hydrocarbons, and then the increased level of connectivity that is driving digital technology and adoption and automation. So we all know I'm sure everybody knows, right? Because this one is happening right in recent times, right? The oil and gas industry has always been volatile. If you look at the first box on that slide, it's actually the boom and bust cycle. You see the increase and the decreases of the oil price, right? But it's been happening from a very long time ago, right? So when we have these cycles, when we have these fluctuations, we see price fluctuations, ambiguity about the future of the fossil fuels, increasing contentious trade negotiations around the world, and changes in supply and demand fundamentals, right? So it could be said this year, as we go through the current pandemic and the disruptions in supply and demand, that the executives in the industry are essentially trying to set a growth course for their companies on the shifting sands, and that will continue even in years to come. We also know that digital adoption and automation is it's here in our life everywhere we go, right? In the kitchen, in the living room, on the roads, it's all over the place. It's also in the industry, right? And we're now using it more and more to increase the efficiency in project management, in operations, in supply chains, to do all kinds of things. We now have drones, robotics, artificial intelligence, and even virtual reality. You will agree with me that with the COVID-19 pandemic and restrictions, right, the digital adoption is even accelerating much more faster than we expected it. And then the big one also is the changing energy mix towards natural gas. So we're having more and more demand, more and more supply in other non-hydrocarbon energy supplies. And even the major oil firms are acknowledging this in recent times. So there's a shift from oil and gas into energy industry. For example, Schlumberger, last month we announced that we announced our plans to move into new energy to the investors last month. We have Shell acquiring the BG Group, and that is one of the things that they wanted to do for their natural gas projects. Now, the path to capturing the future of the industry requires the right investment in technology, in people, paired with flawless execution and governance. And as the days go by, we're going to see a change in business models. And for us that are just starting, we have to make sure that we have the right skill sets, we have the right culture to support this evolution. And that's why we're here. We're here to help you find answers to pertinent questions about this very dynamic industry and how you can thrive in it. So let me dive into the main subjects. 3 things you must do to thrive in the E&P industry. The first one is to know how the industry works. And this is something you usually hear if you were starting your own business. They'll tell you, okay, know the suppliers, your competitors, and all that. It is equally true in the E&P industry if you want to have a career in it, right? So the industry is multifaceted, and I know that in school we get taught about definitions of upstream, downstream, but these things are not enough, right? You have to have at least basic understanding of the basic set of activities that occur in the industry in order for us to deliver a valuable product, right? And this is known as the value chain, right? You also need to be clear about the reason why you're looking to play in the industries and the way that you can contribute or positively impact it. So this is important because it helps you to articulate your value in a way that sets you apart and makes you stand out amongst millions of applicants. It also helps you not to get easily distracted with the package or whatever is happening in the external environment. Now, additionally, you also have to know that the global oil price determines the boom and bust of the industry, right? So basically, oil is one of the most valuable resources in the world, right? It makes up much of the transportation, the heating industry. We're just reliant on it for now, right? And it is a highly sought after commodity, right? Its price is determined by the relationship between supply and demand, and prices will rise in line with demand or fall as supply rises, every other thing else remaining static. But then there are other key drivers, as you can see in the slide, right, that drive the global oil price. And these include things like OPEC, taxes, environmental policies, geopolitical conflicts, logistics, the changing supply landscape, alternative energy sources, and in the most recent time, COVID-19 pandemic. Now, this also leads us to the point where we need to know, when we know what is actually happening, we know how to mobilize, we know how to focus ourselves to be able to bring value to the industry. So this leads me to the second thing you must know in order to thrive in the E&P industry. So the second thing is that you need to be intentional about honing your professional skills. I know some people will say, oh, but I'm just a student, right? This is the time for you to start. This is the very best time. And the professional skills we're talking about are technical skills, functional skills, digital skills, and even soft skills. Technical skills can also be known as hard skills. And this is usually what you get from attending a university or studying petroleum or mechanical engineering or chemical engineering in school. So you get these through specific training, and they include competencies like how to use a particular machine or software, or the use of Darcy's law, for example, as Ezinne taught us yesterday, right? By contrast, the soft skills are the personal traits that help you shape how you work, not just how you work on your own, but also how you work with others. They include skills like communicating effectively, critical thinking for effective problem solving, professional and ethical responsibility, ability to work with different teams and stakeholders. And when we talk about this, I want you to think about emotional and social intelligence. It also includes another favorite of mine, the ability to learn fast and adapt. So these skills are usually referred as the skills that robots do not have, or skills that cannot be automated. So essentially, the technical skills concern your ability to do a specific task, and the soft skills is more about how you do it. When we talk about functional skills, we're talking about those competencies that you can transfer to many different work environments, like writing, editing, teaching, selling, negotiating, organizing data, analyzing data, and things like storytelling as well. For digital skills, when we talk about digital skills, we're not talking about being able to take a selfie and upload it to Instagram. No, you have to be able to find, evaluate, utilize, share, and create content using information technology and the internet, right? Things as simple as knowing how to answer your emails from several platforms, maybe on the desktop or on your mobile, is a digital skill. Knowing how to access company apps, knowing how to tweak a SharePoint layout, or even to host a virtual meeting like we're doing right now. Those are digital skills, right? The thing about digital skills is that it's a language. The more skills you have, the better you are at speaking it. Finally, I want to talk about soft skills. It cannot be understated. In fact, every industry requires that you're able to communicate, to think critically, you're able to do all kinds of things. I'm not going to dwell in it today because last month there was the Women in Energy virtual event, and Yewande Jinadu gave a very detailed presentation on soft skills. So I recommend you go to YouTube and search for this. So most employers in the industry will give you training, both on the job and in the classroom, right, for these skills, but you don't have to wait until you get hired. If you really, really want to stand out as a professional, you need to have at least the basics. You need to research your area of interest on the internet to determine what professional skills are needed for fresh and young professionals, right? The good thing about the industry is that it's an old industry, so there's tons and tons of publications out there for you to take a look at, right? And finally, on this point, you have to be always professional. It doesn't matter all the skills you have. If you're not professional, then you don't bring value to the team. There's no excuse for being unprofessional at all. Make sure you're on time, you're courteous, you dress professionally, and that you treat others professionally as well. And finally, the third thing you need to do to be able to thrive in the industry is to widen your connections. This is a great time to do it. The COVID-19 restrictions have moved everything online has made almost everything virtual. So it's much, much easier now to do this. And what do you need to do? You need to get involved, right? Get involved in things. Some people refer to this as network, right? But it's much more than just asking for connection on LinkedIn or having people's phone numbers. It is more about building relationships, cultivating those relationships, and being able to leverage those relationships to move forward in your career. You will notice that when you're in school, it was very easy to get involved in extracurricular activities, right? Because they were so abundant on campus, right? But most of these activities were limited to students, professionals, and occasional guests. So now you have to make extra effort to join alumni groups, professional organizations, attend conferences, webinars, live events. Just the list is endless. But you have to be intentional, you have to be deliberate, you have to actively engage, you have to actively ask questions, and you need to make sure that your networking brings about connection. The next thing you need to do, or the next level of widening your connection, is to volunteer. Just say yes. If an opportunity presents itself to take on a new project, for example, host an event, organize an event, teach a class, just say yes to it, right? We have time now. And this volunteering while you're in school or during downturn has great career benefits, right? So apart from enhancing your industry network, it can help you get a job. It helps you develop your leadership skills. It helps you provide something you can put on your resume to boost it. And it also gives you access to technical information. So the third level is to have mentors, right? Sometimes we overthink the role of mentors. We think, okay, I have to have access to OG and I have to be able to call her every day. I have to be able to ask her questions. We need to think outside the box now and look at informal mentorships, right? A simple way of leveraging the power of mentorship is to daily identify one person, right? That person, you're going to learn from the person, you're going to ask the person questions, you write down what you're learning, write down how you're growing, right? Another example is someone that wants to be a mechanical engineer. You can decide to visit an auto workshop, just talk to them, ask about engines and motors and how everything works, right? Just make sure that you daily identify people that you admire and people you want to learn from, and don't wait for formal mentorship before you can start to have enjoy the benefits of mentorship. Lastly, you have to inspire others. You cannot take all these things in and not pour it out, right? You have to write technical papers. I loved it when Rita was saying that she started writing when she was in school, right? And one of her essays made it possible for Nigerians to be able to participate. That's awesome. So now you can write papers. There's student papers, young professional papers, even for in the SPE, right? So write papers, essays, teach others what you know, gather around the second year students, teach them something, right? You actually know more than you think you know. Remember that you have to start somewhere to get somewhere, right? You don't have to wait to graduate. You don't have to get hired. You don't have to wait for the industry to rebound. You don't have to ask for permission to widen your connections. In fact, recruiters are looking for any evidence that shows that you're actually interested in the industry, right? And when you have these connections on your resume, it shows that you're really interested in the industry. Okay, so that's it from my end. There are 3 steps. You have to know how the industry works, you have to hone your professional skills, and you have to widen your connections. So I'd like to encourage all of us, despite what we hear, what we see, I want us to get ready for amazing adventure in the industry. Always be learning. Always, and Ezinne said it, always be learning. It proves that you're willing to grow. It proves that you have goals, and also that you're a true team player. So there are tremendous opportunities out there, but they require, even now, a lot of mental and physical resilience to attain this. So I believe that those people who can show their capabilities and passions that are aligned with the future direction of the industry, they will definitely succeed. So thank you for listening to my presentation. I'll now hand over to LSC, our host, who will take us through the mini Q&A session before we get into the roundtable. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you so much, Ihuaku, for that inspiring presentation. I'm sure we've all learned from it. If at all you haven't taken anything away, take away the three key things that you need to strive in the oil and gas industry. One of which is know how your industry works. She's mentioned it. She talked about being intentional about honing your professional skills, and then networks, widen your connections. That cannot be overemphasized. So right now, I think I will hand over to Princess to take us through on some of the questions that may already occur in the chat box. We will spend about 5 minutes for this mini Q&A. So it's either you post your questions in the chat box, or if you would like to unmute yourself, your mic, and speak up, then please make use of the raise your hand feature, and Princess will give you the floor. So over to you, Princess.
Thank you very much, Elise. So there haven't been much questions in the chat section yet. So if anyone has any questions, thus far it's been remarks on the wonderful presentation by Ihuaku. So please leave your questions in the chat section.
Okay, all right. So whilst we wait for the questions to come in, please, if you have your videos on, please do help us and turn your videos off, okay? So thank you. So if we do not have anyone raising their hands, okay, do we have someone with a question?
Yes, we have a question. Okay, so this is from Chigozie. Within the context of enhancing your technical skills, how important is it to pursue an advanced degree in, say, engineering or digital technologies?
Thank you for your
Go ahead.
Thank you for your question, Chigozie. That's a very interesting one, right? So remember, when I started, I did mention that you need to know what you want to become in the industry. You need to be clear about the value you want to bring. Will that advanced degree help you to become what you have set yourself up to become? Will it help you to provide value to the industry? In a place like Schlumberger, we have two different career ladders. One is for the technical people and one is for the management people, right? So if you want to be on the technical ladder, you have to pursue things like advanced degrees and advanced training and advanced involvement in technical matters, right? But if you're on the other side, then you don't really necessarily have to do that. So again, the answer to your question lies in the true value you want to bring and where you see yourself in the industry. I did mention that if you do take a look online, there's lots and lots and lots of articles and documentation on the industry. So you'll be able to actually find out what other people are doing, how they are doing it. And if you did listen to the four of us, you will also see that we had different career journeys, right? So what applies to one person will not necessarily apply to the other person. So know your value and know what you want to be and know what value you want to contribute, and that will determine whether you should go ahead and get an advanced degree or not. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So Eduardo has his hands up. Eduardo Campos, can you unmute yourself and speak? Okay. So while Eduardo is on that, we have another question that says, just hold on, please. Okay. So we have a question that says, I'm experienced in natural gas and combined heat and power. How can I join the oil and gas industry?
Thank you, Moses Ajiri, for that question. I think the slide on widening your connections actually will answer it. You have to network, you have to volunteer, you have to get involved, and you have to look out for opportunities to join the industry. Somebody like me, I studied computer science, and then I stumbled into it, right? The opportunities are endless, but you have to be out there and you will find them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have other questions for him. Okay.
Okay. So we can, Princess, we can only spend another 2 minutes for this mini Q&A. If you're just joining us, please, our meeting etiquette involves you turning off your video. So please turn off your video. Only the panelists would have their videos on. Thank you. So over to you, back to you, Princess, and we'll be spending another 2 minutes and then we'll move on.
Sorry, is it possible to come without the question? I can't type.
Yes.
Okay. Princess, you have the floor,
Okay.
so you give control to whomever you choose.
Raise your hand prior to asking your question, then we would invite you to speak. Thank you. But since we have 2 minutes.
I'm not on laptop, I'm on a smaller phone, so I will be able to raise my hand here.
Okay, please ask your question. Please ask your question.
Can I go on, sir?
Please ask your question.
Okay. Actually, my question right now is, in the OERP industry, especially in this COVID-19 pandemic issue, apart from working in the EMP, is there any other way someone can take advantage, of other numerous opportunities that are being offered by the EMP industry?
Thank you for your question. Like I said in the previous one, right? You have to get out there. You have to get the opportunities that are out there. If you joined us from the beginning of my presentation, you would have heard that what is happening in the industry right now is not new, right? It has been happening for a very long time. We've had at least 10 major boom and bust cycles in the industry. I particularly joined the industry when there was a downturn as well. So you need to be out there. There are still people hiring. We know that the companies, organizations are cutting costs and delaying projects and all that stuff. But if you develop the value you bring, right, you'll be able to find a slot or an opportunity where you can apply it. You need to know that what the industry is like and where that value you bring fits. Once you're able to do that, that will help you to be able to showcase yourself so that you stand out amongst millions of other people. So right now, there'll be people coming out of school, there'll be people looking for jobs, there'll be people that just got out of jobs as well. So the talent pool has widened, right? You have to do all that is required to make sure that you stand out for amongst the rest of the people. So it actually lies on you. You have to do the work required to be able to get those opportunities. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you turn off your videos, Itebo and Williams, please?
All right, so we will move on. Please, in the interest of time, we'll move on. I see some of the questions being asked are related to the pre-registered questions that we had asked participants to post in prior to this session. So we'll attend to some of those questions in the panel session. Before we move into the panel session, I would like to ask those that have their videos on, please indulge us and obey the meeting etiquette by switching off your video. Thank you.
Hello, Elijah. Please, can you help me?
Okay, all right. So we will move straight up into the panel session, and I'll be sharing some of the questions that have already been posted by the participants, and then our panelists will then address those questions. All right, please do let me know when you can see my screen, and then we will carry on.
You can see your screen.
Okay, great. All right, so this is the main objective of our being here, which is basically to address some of our concerns, our career concerns, getting ready to go into the oil and gas industry. Ihuaku has done a fantastic job in getting us into that mindset of what is required for us to strive in the industry. But now we'll also then be addressing some of your questions. And these questions were the pre-registered questions, and we'll just try as much as possible to make it as interactive as possible. Right after, there are 3 rounds. Right after each round, we'll give another opportunity for us to address some of the questions in the chat box, and that way we can make this session quite interactive. So thank you, everyone. I hope we can also see our panelists. I think I will share my entire screen so we can see both the questions as well as the panelists. Okay, so the very first question we have, okay, pardon me, give me a few minutes to. Okay, whilst I sort out that technical glitch, rather than stop this session, we'll sort that out whilst we take the break for the chat's Q&A. So now we've been through this entire session, like I mentioned in the beginning, from Monday all the way to today being the wrap-up session, and we've heard quite a lot from our online training, which was delivered by Ezinne and Rita. Now, I would like to ask this question, and this question is part of the pre-registered questions. So we've heard all of that. So what do reservoir engineers, production engineers, drilling engineers, reservoir geologists, geophysicists do in the oil and gas industry? And I think this question is directed at Ezinne. So Ezinne, please, could you help clarify what these various professionals contribute to the oil and gas industry?
Okay, hi. Thank you very much, Elsie. Okay, so I'm just going to go over those professions. So I'm going to start with the geophysicists, right? Because the geophysicists are the first people at the first line of call. So what do they do? So as a geophysicist, your focus is really on understanding the physics of the earth, you know, the basic principles, so that when they acquire seismic data, in fact, you might even be part of the crew, but your objective is to acquire the data or help in planning acquiring the data, interpret it, and create a subsurface map, right? 2D or 3D, an image of the reservoir. So the geophysicists are the first people on call when you start an exploration, because they are the ones, when you shoot seismic, they are sending light, they have to look at the refraction, the reflection, to see if they see or they can identify a surface, right, that tells them that there could be possibly hydrocarbon there. And then they try to delineate the reservoir. They try to delineate the reservoir and create a map of the structure. Okay, so that's the first thing. So after the geophysicists go there, we go now, next phase will be the geologists. So the geophysicists have now created a map. They say, okay, we have hydrocarbon, etc. They've done all this fantastic analysis. So the objective of the geologists, and I'll put geologists / reservoir geologists, right, will be to take that map and convert it into a geologic model. So the geologists will looking at the depositional environment. So the petrophysics is giving you a map of where the reservoir is and how it's accumulated and if there's a trap. But you as a geologist, you understand the rock. So what you'll be looking at, okay, is is it possible to confirm that really this is an oil reservoir, where is the source rock, how did it migrate here, where is the trap, and then you convert that using, software. You convert it into a 3D model, right? You have to show what the rock and the reservoir subsurface structure looks like, right? The faults and everything. And even as a reservoir geologist, through the life of the well, you'll be called upon to keep updating the geologic model as more information is acquired, right? So after that, the next person that comes into this workflow is the reservoir engineer. So the reservoir engineer takes this geologic model and says, okay, this is what the geologist has given us. Now I need to quantify how much oil, how much gas we have. Okay, I need to be able to quantify the amount of reserves. What is the recovery factor? So recovery factor meaning how much of that oil can we produce over the life of the well. Okay, so this is the job of the reservoir engineer. They will look at the whole map, the geologic map, and the geologic model. There's some noise on the line. They will look at the geologic model and they will try to convert that into a dynamic model. Hi, LSC, please, can you mute everyone? There's some noise on the line, please.
Yeah. Okay.
Just mute
So
everyone.
I'm going to
mute
mute all. Okay, I'm going to mute all, and then you have to unmute yourself, Ezinne, and carry on, please.
That's fine.
Please carry on, Ezinne.
Okay, great. So, yeah, I was talking about the reservoir geologist, right? So now you have a geologic model, a 3D representation of the reservoir. You know, they've put the properties. So the reservoir geologist is working with the petrophysicist to try to characterize the reservoir. So the reservoir geologist, right? Now the reservoir engineer is going to quantify the amount of reserves, meaning the amount of oil in the ground. There are different ways that different governments use to guidelines to quantify these. They also do some tentative well planning to say, okay, if this is the oil we have, how many wells do we need to produce all this oil? How much oil, how many million barrels of oil can we produce? And they make a recommendation on a field development plan to say, okay, going forward, we recommend to drill 20 or 30 wells in this reservoir. 10 of these wells will be injector wells, 20 will be some producer wells. You need to think about primary recovery or secondary recovery because the oil you will lose some energy after 5 or 10 years, and you have to think about injection or doing some enhanced oil recovery, right? And they give a tentative drilling plan and all that next to the drilling engineers. So what the production and drilling engineers do now is, first, the production engineers, they take that plan. So that plan that the reservoir engineer has given you is a concept. They've said, okay, look, I think we can produce from this well 10,000 barrels of oil per day based on the reservoir. And if you remember what we talked about, the inflow. But now as a production engineer, you need to take that information and see how are you going to achieve it, okay? What size of tubing are you going to use? Is the pressure going to sustain? If the pressure is not going to sustain to lift the oil to surface, then what kind of artificial lift do we need? Are we going to do gas lift or do we need pumps? And even on surface, you have to plan, right? The surface pipeline, where is the nearest flow station, right? How do we get this oil from the ground all the way down to the end users, right? What kind of completion and perforation do we use? And then the drilling engineers on their own are now more into execution. So when we've taken that plan and it's been approved, right? And we know that we're probably going to be going ahead with drilling these 10 wells. Then the objective of the drilling engineer and their job role is to do the actual well plan. So the drilling engineers will say, okay, the reservoir engineer has told me that there's oil 10,000 feet below the ground at a particular coordinate, right? It's like Google Maps below the subsurface, XY coordinate. So they are going to decide, first of all, on surface, where do I need to be to start drilling the well? What kind of trajectory, right? If you find out that the oil is far, but you don't have access there, where are we going to put the rig? And how are we going to drill to the target? What are the risks? Do we have any issues that we can have a high pressure zone and all that? So they are more practical into designing the drilling. And the drilling engineers, if you're an offshore drilling engineers, during the execution phase as well, you have to go to the rig to manage the operations every day, to look at what is happening and make sure that the drilling is on target, right? So that's kind of like a summary of, I think I captured the 5 key points, right? I hope
Yeah,
so.
indeed. He's given us a crash program or a crash course on petroleum engineering. So thank you for that. So I think there's a question around the role of other engineering disciplines. So Ezinne has mentioned, disciplines that are within geology, petroleum engineering related. Now, this question is speaking to other engineering disciplines like electrical, civil, mechanical. What are the roles of these other disciplines in the oil and gas industry? And I'm directing this question to Ihuaku.
Thank you for that question, LSC. Actually, when you look at the chat, you can see lots of questions that are related to it, and OG is doing an amazing job at responding to all of them. For the person that asked this question, I recommend that you go look at the chat and see all the answers or responses to role related questions. But one thing I would like to reiterate, right? You need to know where you want to play in the industry. We need people to make tools, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, because tools have mechanical parts, they have electrical parts, they even have chemical parts as well. We need people to run these tools in the field, in the workshops, to get these tools ready. We need engineers to do that, right? We need also people to interpret the data that these tools bring to the bring after they are being used in the well site as well, right? So we also need people at when at the plants, right, in the production facilities, right? Everywhere we have equipment, we need engineers to run it. Now, do you necessarily need an engineering degree to get into it? Not necessarily, right? But you have to be able to tell where you want to play. Do you want to be in the field? Do you want to be in the research? Do you want to be in the manufacturing? Do you want to be in the office? Do you want to be in sales? We actually need people to sell the value we bring from these tools as well. And you need to be able to understand how the tools work to be able to do it. So there are numerous ways where engineers, especially engineers, can work in the oil and gas industry. Again, know where you want to play, know what value you can bring, know the kind of person you are, right? Are you the kind of person that wants to be hands-on, right? Then you go to the field, run the tools. Are you the kind of person that is into research? Then by all means, be in the research center, think about new ways of getting the tools to work, modifying it, improving it, making it more cost effective. So engineering is very, very, it's one of the fundamental roles in the industry, and there's so many things you can do with an engineering degree, right? Now, do I go ahead and answer the second question on skill set?
Yes, so it fits nicely to, your earlier presentation around the skill set. So yeah, please, if you can go ahead and answer that.
Okay. So skill sets, again, as a fresh professional, a young professional, a fresh graduate, you have to make sure that the technical side is taken care of, and you also have to make sure that the soft side is taken care of as well. Things like being able to communicate. For example, in school, you have been communicating with mostly your co-students or your colleagues, and maybe sometimes the lecturers when they have time. But now you have to be able to communicate to a whole range of people. I remember having to be on the rig, and you have to actually, sometimes you have to talk to so many people. You have to talk to the company man, you have to talk to the tool pusher, you also have to talk to the guy on the winch to help you get your tool from the supply boat as well. You need communication skills, whether the person is schooled or not, knows what is happening or not. You need to be able to communicate effectively, right? You also, because the industry is mostly project based, right? You will hardly find a role or a position that requires you to work by yourself and yourself alone, right? You have to work in teams, sometimes from the client side, from the service company side, from the vendor side, from the regulatory side. You also need to be able to do that. you also have to be, like I said in my presentation, you have to be fast to think critically, and not just to think critically, but your thinking should be able to solve problems, right? There are sometimes you get a type of reservoir that nobody has ever seen, or you have a kind of problem that nobody has ever experienced, and you're required to come up with solutions for it, right? So you need to be able to think critically with the objective of solving problems. The list is endless, right? But I won't ask you to limit yourself. I'll recommend for you to search yourself, right? Where am I lacking, and what should I improve on, right? You need to be able to know yourself and know what to focus on. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Ihuaku, for that. I mean, the story around being on the rig just brought me back to, my first time on the rig as well. And indeed, communication skills are really, really important in our industry. So I'll move into the next question, which is around what are the relevant software for oil and gas industry? Over the course of the training, Rita and Ezinne took us through on some softwares, particularly on reservoir engineering softwares as well as production. Now, this question is speaking still to those softwares beyond, just reservoir and production. What are the softwares relevant for the oil and gas industry? I'm directing this to Ezinne. You are currently on mute, Ezinne.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Yeah, so software for oil and gas. So I can talk about the most popular. There are a ton of software, and permit me if I'm biased because I have to talk about Schlumberger software, right? I'm through blue in the blood. Okay, so there's one key part, right, where you need software is when we talk about deformation evaluation, right? So deformation evaluation is looking more into trying to look at logs and convert that raw data, right, from the tools. Ihuaku just talked about tools and electrical engineering. You have to remember that these tools are actually is physics, right? It's an electrical measurement that we're taking, but we need to use that electrical measurement and convert it into something that looks like gas, oil, water, sand, shale, right? So one software for formation evaluation is TechLog. So it's a very broad, very broad platform, and you can use it typically for almost any kind of process, and even beyond a lot of things beyond just formation evaluation, right? So another software that is very key in the industry, what we call like modeling software. I talked about the role of the reservoir geologist, reservoir engineer. So they need a software to convert that information and those maps. They need something to build a 3D model of the reservoir, right? So you'll be looking at a software that allows you to do reservoir modeling, and that could be something like Petrel. You can also look at Eclipse, which is the simulator, the engine itself that allows you to run the simulations. Okay, so when you're talking about software, you have to look at a software. If you're in reservoir engineering or geology, you have to look at that kind of software to build your models, to run your simulations, and do your dynamic modeling. And then as a production engineer, you will be looking at software that yesterday we used PipeSim. I showed you quickly how to use PipeSim, but it's a very key software, right? It's not the only one out there. As I said, there are many software, but the objective of PipeSim is to help you to plan the well, look at what your production is going to look like, and kind of have a production system plan that is integrated, right? So those are some very key software that we use in the industry. Okay.
All right, thank you, Ezinne, for that. And maybe a follow-up question to that would be, as a student or a new graduate getting ready to go into the industry, do they have to learn this software as creating a niche for themselves before going into the industry? In just maybe a few words on that, and then we'll move on to the next question.
Okay, thank you, Elise. Yeah, so if you're coming in as a fresh graduate. Most companies that you're going to go to will train you. The internationals, the IOCs, the Schlumbergers, right? The big companies servicing and producing will train you. However, when you start, and today the oil industry, right, in Nigeria is quite dynamic. We have marginal fields, we have smaller companies, a lot of them now. And if you go to those kind of companies, they may not be able to give you from day one the training that you need on the software. So if you're going to a smaller company, it always helps, right, to have some idea of knowledge. So if you can find a way to train, and obviously if you're job hunting, you don't know where you end up. So if you can find a way to learn how to use the software better, you put it there on your CV, some basic knowledge of reservoir, of petrol and eclipse. Trust me, your CV is going to come above the next person who doesn't have any basic knowledge at all, right?
Thank you, Ezinne. So and thanks really for bringing in that perspective, because that's a lot of questions. That's sort of question that I hear from, graduates that I interact with. So we'll move on to the next. We've talked about hard skills. We've talked about digital skills, right? So this question is speaking to how can we integrate data science with geology and with geophysics? And I'll direct this to Oji to please respond to this question.
Okay, hi LSC and hi everyone. Thank you for that question. It's an interesting one because when I thought about it, it seemed to me that the very work that a geologist does is really about integrating data science, right? I think sometimes we think data science is something different from the rest of the oil and gas industry or what we do as industry, but indeed they are parts of the same. My colleagues here have talked about the data that is acquired in the field, like well logs. What really is a well log? It's points of data that are taken along a well bore that a curve is then fitted. What is a seismic? What is seismic? Seismic is your velocity, your density and velocity at interfaces convolve that creates a reflection coefficient at the boundary changes convolve with a wavelet. That's what seismic is, and then you put a variable density color to make it look to the contrast look different, so you can determine where you have the changes between different rock layers and how those changes are also impacted by the fluids that they contain. So as a geologist, I have to understand what my data is telling me. I have to understand what the science is telling me. A rock that contains hydrocarbon is going to react differently to seismic and to well logging tools than one that contains oil and one that contains water. So the water and oil, for example, and hydrocarbons, and even between the hydrocarbons, oil and gas, they're all going to react quite differently. So when you integrate all of that, so you integrate that in a domain, in a depth domain or in a time domain, and even creating velocity models, for example, that converts from time domain to the depth domain is something that requires a lot of data as well. Now, why do geologists do this? They do this because, like my colleague said, you need to create a map and you need to create a geocellular model. The geocellular model is a 3D representation of what the Earth is. A geocellular model really is a statistical model. So you have to be able to say that even if I drill a well in this location, how do I combine what I know of the geology and propagate the properties of the reservoir from that well bore, away from the well bore, so that even though I don't have wells everywhere, I also have data everywhere to be able to create a geocellular model. That's essentially what it is. Before you start anything, it's just like the data science processes that we follow online and anywhere, which is you gather the data. And Ezinne has talked very well about what the different kinds of data are. I think Ihuaku also mentioned that. So you do your data collection, you pre-process your data. Even as a geologist, I'll pre-process it. I remember working for Halliburton as well as a software geologist. Essentially, it was my job to be able to load the data, QC it, and provide it in a way that is readable to my clients. And why would you want a geologist to do that? You want a geologist to do that because if the seismic, for example, doesn't look good, I as a geologist understand why it doesn't look good, and I understand what to do to make it to give a better result. So you do some pre-processing, and then of course you clean up the data. You can, for the well logs, you can do some despiking, you can do some stretch and squeeze and so on and so forth. And then when you do all of that, you then go through a process of integrating that, like I mentioned, and then creating a 3D model that represents your reservoir. And of course, from that model, you can do all kinds of things. You can make predictions, you can calculate your volumes, you can plan a well, you can determine where the best sweet spot is to drill a production well, and so on and so forth. So that's essentially what it is. Data science is not something that is standalone in a way. It's something that is employed by the oil industry. It's a process that is employed by the oil industry. You must train your data. You must understand the tools and the way the tools use artificial intelligence, because these tools are all built on artificial intelligence. You have a point data here, but you want to be able to extrapolate it somewhere else. So you give it a trend. You give it some kind of and the software also learns how those things are trended and how it propagates away from the point set. Can you please mute everyone? Let's see. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, okay, so I may have to step in. Oji, if you could wrap up on that question,
Yes.
so we could move on to the next.
Yes, I think that's where I would like to leave it at that it's not something that is standalone with geology and geophysics. It's something that is part of geology and geophysics, and there are ways of interpreting the data as well and integrating it and creating something out of it. Thank you.
All right. Okay, thank you so much, Oji, for that. Still speaking on integrating data science. This time around, the question is around how do we integrate it with petroleum engineering? And this question is directed to Rita. If you could unmute your mic and please address the question in as much short time as possible. Thank you.
Oh, don't limit me, really. Okay, so I'm kind of building on what Oji has said, but I would like to focus more on let's call it artificial intelligence in general, and knowing that there's machine learning, deep learning on one side, where we gather data, we try to interpret it and learn more about the data and the solutions or interpretation as more data come in. And on the other side, look at data science, where we are gaining insights into, let's say, a field through data that we have, and try to find ways of monitoring this data, doing data analytics, more or less, with data that exists. Now, in the petroleum industry, we have been using this thing. We have been using it. It's just now that it's gaining popularity, and it is still evolving. Now, the people in the petroleum industry, they love their physics and their mathematics. So they are not, very happy about something coming to tell them just one equation, telling them that there's oil there. But we've seen a lot of advances in recent times, and we feel that there's a lot of opportunity. So let's start with something like reservoir and petrophysics. Oji has touched a little bit of that. So we basically use AI, machine learning, and machine learning more especially to generate pseudo logs. You've been drilling, you've drilled wells all over this place, and then when you want to now drill a new well, you gather the previous logs that you've had, train it, and let it explain to you or teach you and tell you what you might expect. So we use that to generate pseudo logs, and we use it to now make some decisions even before we drill. We also use it in things like getting permeability. Permeability is one of these data that it's not exactly measured because of things of the how would I say, there's a lot of anisotropy that affects it. There are things like changes in geology that can affect your permeability from one place to the other. So because of the huge uncertainty surrounding permeability being a very important factor in our reserves evaluation or flow or understanding flow, there are methods we use like neural networks to be able to generate permeability from data like porosity or things like that, or other information that is available. For PVT data, we get samples from the reservoir, but how well are we understanding the whole size of the reservoir? So we use machine learning to interpret most of this PVT data and try to extrapolate to various parts of the field. Moving on from there, we have areas like production. I remember in one of my job roles, I had to work with a team and build build a digital oil field where we have monitors that gather data. It's supposed to tell us when the pressure drops, this is what is going to happen. When the temperature drops, this is what is going to happen. And especially when you are dealing with offshore remote locations where you cannot go to intervene easily, you need some kind of ways of understanding what is going on, predicting, stopping you even before an incident happens, right? So that's the data analytics. So we use it there to ensure safety, to ensure we're not going to have busting of pipes and just natural hazards due to operations. Then drilling. Now drilling is one of these high risk things. Lots of data. Like when you go to the drilling rig, you see them, they are looking at this dashboard of all sorts of data. They need to be able to put in all this data together and say, we are going to have a kick with what we are seeing. And this is based on what has happened in the past. So they're able to gather, before you drill a well, gather data from the past. This is what has happened. This is the trend. And based on this trend, we're beginning to, if we see this kind of thing happen again, this is what is going to happen on the rig. And so we can stop it. So I think for me, data analytics, data science, artificial intelligence, it has a lot of application in our industry. I can't begin to exhaust it here. But the key thing is that it is still evolving. It is something that is of interest. Like if anybody's interested in it, please go ahead and learn about it. You will see that 20 years from now, people might just be saying, look, we don't need to bother to just build a reservoir model. Let us just build a proxy model based on artificial intelligence, which is current area of research. And that is going to help to solve issues of uncertainties that we are dealing with, solve issues of a lot of lack of data that we have, and things like that, help us to ensure safety and protection of the environment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rita, for that. So what I hear really is that data science is already inherent in our disciplines as petroleum engineers, as geologists, but it is evolving to the point where we can actually leverage on AI to be able to make sense out of the data in a very short time. All right. So thanks for that, Rita. I don't know, do we have any questions on before we move on to round two? I guess in the interest of time, we will move into round two because our seasoned panelists have also taken out time to respond to some of the questions in the chat box. So we'll move on to round two of the questions. And here for round two questions, these questions are more related to career, general career advices, switching careers or even moving to a completely different field entirely. So the very first question is around, we've heard Ihuaku, the impact of COVID. We've heard the impact of the oil price. There's a lot of disruption going on in the industry with the energy mix, the energy transition. So really, what is the relevance of petroleum engineering careers in now and of course in the future, considering all these various disruptions going on in the industry? And this is for Ezinne, please.
Hi. I was busy on the chat and I lost track of that. Okay, so relevance of the petroleum engineering careers. So I know that there's a shift, right, in the future towards, and I think Ihuaku talked on that in her presentation, in us transitioning from this from fossil fuels and petroleum into more alternative sources. However, today petroleum is the dominant source of energy worldwide. It's undisputed, and our jobs is not going anywhere anytime soon, right? So that's just to put it in relevance, because people think, okay, maybe no, it's the transition into more alternative sources of energy is going to happen, but it's going to take time. This needs to be sustainable, right? They need to figure out a way to manufacture enough energy for the whole world, right? So it's very so you going to school to do petroleum engineering today, next year, next 5 years is still relevant. Now, in the future, right, there's going to be a transition, and there are also opportunities, right, for you to start looking at alternative sources of energy. So it won't, it's going to be good for your mindset to broaden your knowledge beyond the petroleum engineering, to understand that, okay, we've been talking about crude, but there's another way, right? So it'll be good for you to actually do that. But if today you're in school, you're graduating, or you're still in school, or you're planning to go into university, I don't think there's anybody from high school here. You shouldn't worry, because the petroleum engineering is going to be very relevant. We're going to have downturns like we're having now, and we will re-strategize, but we're going to come back from it, because there is no other energy available for the whole world today, right? That is going to be sustainable in the short term. Okay.
All right, thank you, Ezinne.
Yeah.
And that feeds into this question for Rita, specifically addressing, what are your career advices for people, in the industry or planning to get into the industry in light of the energy mix and AI?
Okay. So Ezinne has said it that, look, petroleum is not going anywhere. And if any of you were able to see Ihuaku's slide, you would have seen that two things were actually on the growth. It's natural gas and renewables. So renewables consist of the solar, consists of the wind, consists of geothermal. There's also hydro, which has been there, but in some classifications, they move it out of renewables. Now, in light of what is evolving, one of the things I'm going to say is that your technical skills are transferable. I'm currently doing research in geothermal reservoir engineering, and what I'm applying are the things that I learned as a petroleum reservoir engineer. So your technical skills are transferable, be it the ones you learned as an engineer, your thermodynamics, your heat transfer, and all of that. Your mechanical engineering, your electrical engineering, they are transferable to those other areas of energy mix, okay? So what I'll say is just maintain your technical knowledge. Maintain your technical knowledge. If you need to switch to something else, you will find out that you can find a way of transferring it. And I give you an example. There's something they call solar thermal. Solar thermal is that how do we store solar energy underneath the ground? How do they do it? It's based on concepts of porosity. Okay, if you know your porosity and how you store things within pores, you do your solar thermal and you're able to store it there. Yeah? You also have CO2. So they're talking about emissions, want to reduce CO2 emission. CO2 storage is all about storing CO2 in the ground. Same principles that you do in understanding accumulation of reservoirs is the same domain knowledge. So don't panic, get your domain knowledge and then see where you can apply it. One very interesting one that I came across is, how I had to bring my thermodynamics of university to understand geothermal reservoirs, because it's not oil anymore. It's a different fluid I'm dealing with. When a certain temperature reaches, the water is going to change to steam, and I have to understand how the reservoir is going to behave if it's steam or if it is water. So you need all those technical and domain knowledge. So don't discount them in what you're doing. I would now say go online. This generation is privileged that there is information everywhere. Go online, read about all these renewable energy sources, all the contributions to energy mix, and see what is of interest to you and your area. Is it the wind? Is it solar PV? Is it solar thermal? etc. So you check all of that. SPE journal. So SPE is also evolving too. It's trying to incorporate all these things about AI. It's trying to bring in all these things about energy mixes. So if you read SPE journals, JPT, you begin to see some of the interactions between the oil and gas and these other areas. Look, if you're a drilling engineer in the oil and gas industry, if you drill HPHT wells, that's high pressure, high temperature wells, your skills are relevant for geothermal reservoirs. If you know anything about completions, the wells that are drilled for CO2 sequestration, they are just about what kind of specifications of wells do I use. It's not the same one for oil and gas, but if you have a knowledge of how wells work, you would also be able to apply it there. Similarly, you're talking about when you store fluid under the ground, you need to track it, you need to monitor it. And so the same way as we run logs, cased hole logs, to understand what's in the reservoir, is the same way you're going to do it to track any fluid that you have put under the surface. So your petrophysical knowledge would also be applied there. So so I'm just reiterating the need for maintaining your domain knowledge. It will be relevant to you. Okay. Now, if we need to go into AI, it has you need to know your mathematics. Let me not just say AI, but in terms of any other thing, any of these energy mixes as well. Know your mathematics. You need to understand your partial differential equations. You need to understand your linear algebra. You need to understand your statistics. Most of the things in AI are between linear algebra and statistics. So you need to be conversant with these things. If you're not yet there, go and learn, go and read. There are courses online that you can take to improve on yourself. And then coding. Look, my kids, 4-year-old, are learning to code, and that is where the future will be. Even if you're studying medicine, you need to learn to code. Even if you're studying finance, you will need to learn to code. That is where the future is going to. So you need to go and learn a programming language, Python, R, MATLAB. If you want to go into software development, because all these things that they are doing, they will need software to support them, right? Go and learn your C# and your C++. Okay, so these are the things that you just need to understand, that look, the landscape is changing. A very important thing that happens when the energy and the oil price is dropping, there's going to be advances in technology, and those with the relevant skills are the ones that will be able to move on to the next level. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Rita. And I think that also touches on the next question. And I don't know, Ihuaku, if you're available to add to what Rita has said, but this one is now speaking more to, what are the career opportunities within the oil and gas industry? We've said quite a lot, what are the opportunities post COVID-19? What is going to change? What are your advices on that?
So in summary, the industry is evolving. The traditional roles we know from before will probably not exist. But it doesn't mean that all hope is lost. You still have to go and research. You still have to go and find out. When Rita is talking about coding and AI, look at COVID-19. It's making everybody stay at home, right? We're moving very, very fast to remote operations. We have remote operation centers where they monitor things happening at the rig site. So no more need to have roughnecks and winch and all those people and all the mud splashing all over everybody just to get tools to run in hole and out, right? We're going to need people who are able to monitor those things, to understand the language of technology and and digital, to be able to run these things. So keep abreast of what is happening in the industry. I think it was it Transocean? I can't remember, but they announced a few months ago that they're going to have a rig that is run completely on blockchain, right? So that is also another niche that is available to us. Let's not just sit and wait for people to pass on the information to us. Let's be aggressive about staying abreast of what's happening, staying ahead of what is happening, so that you know exactly where you can provide value. It is going to be more and more difficult for people to stumble into the industry in coming years, right? You have to be able to prove that you have something to offer for you to be considered, because again, there'll be lots of people, lots of graduates as a recruiter. I even had graduates from MIT, from US, from the UK trying to get internship in Nnebocha in Nigeria, and you're wondering, why are they not applying over there, right? It's because there's so much demand for these positions and too little slots for it. So be aggressive about keeping abreast of what is happening and use that to shape how you want to grow your career in the industry. Thank you.
Ihuaku, thank you so much for that. And just to add, I don't know how many of us have seen the movie Hidden Figures when you watch that movie, then all of this will make sense to you. So I would advise us to all watch that movie. Then we'll move on to the next. The next question is around switching. So some people are here asking, what's the future in the oil and gas industry? Some others are asking questions around, we're currently in a different industry and we would like to switch to the oil and gas industry. So what is the advice for such people? And this will be directed to Rita.
All right, so I will address two sets of people. So the first set of people are those who have a non-engineering background. So usually it is rare that someone with a non-engineering background is employed as an engineer, okay? But it's not impossible. It's rare. And so if, for instance, you have a degree that is very far from petroleum engineering, for instance, then you can consider getting an advanced degree to help you. I hope that in the future there'll be something like certifications or courses that could help people. You don't need to do a complete like a master's or so, but that might be a stepping stone. And the other thing is that there are some companies that recruit people as they are, but as you begin to grow within the organization and show your interest, they would let you to do certain things. There was someone I worked with whose background was physics, and he was employed to help with tools, understanding of tools, but that guy ended up being a domain champion in petrophysics, because in understanding the tools, he began to understand what was this data coming out from the tools and how to interpret them. And from there, he became a petrophysicist. So this is how he started off as just a mere scientist within the organization. So that's for people who are non-engineering. Now, if you have an engineering degree, I might say you are even more at an advantage compared to somebody who has a science degree. And that's because most of these things that we learn in other areas are transferable. As a mechanical engineer, you are dealing with Bernoulli equations and all of that. You will need them for flow for production. You deal with fluid mechanics, and currently in the industry, they're looking for people that have expertise in fluid mechanics at the micro level and at the macro level. So the skills are transferable. The thing is that it may not just start out as somebody will say, I'm looking for a mechanical engineer to fill a reservoir engineering role. No. So most times, to help yourself, you get an advanced degree. And when they see that, okay, you got an advanced degree, you did something related to, let's say, reservoir simulation with a background in mechanical engineering, they are more than happy to take you, because they know that the intersection of that to you will even bring in more value than someone who is a core petroleum engineer. Okay, so I don't want anyone to think that you can't make it if you really want to join the oil and gas industry, be a petroleum engineer and all of that. You can. There are opportunities for you, but if you need to get additional training, or something, help yourself, and it will work out for you. Thank you.
All right, thanks for that, Rita. Thanks for that nice perspective. And it's not really all about the oil and gas industry, really. In the beginning, Ihuaku, in her presentation, she said something about who you want to become, right? So it's not about how much you're going to make. And there are lots of people, having their own businesses, while still being petroleum engineers. So this question is around, entrepreneurship, managing startups. You have lots of people, combining both their petroleum engineering careers with their own startups. So how can that entire scope be managed? And I'm directing this to Oji to throw more light on this.
Okay, thank you. This question, I find it particularly exciting to me because I've seen so many examples of where this was successfully done. I'll give you one example. I don't know if you've heard of the company called Cypher Crescent. It's owned by, thank God, Egbe. He's a very popular person even within SPE. He worked for Shell. He was my colleague in Shell for several years. He's a reservoir engineer, actually. But he had this really, really mad skills in coding, in software, and writing programs and all that. And he was even a subject matter expert even in Shell, because he would take a software, he would break it down, he would understand it so well, he would teach people that they were flying him around the whole world to go and teach people about software that Shell had bought. And with that experience, even with his experience, he then set up his own company. And Cypher Crescent right now creates software for the oil industry. Go on LinkedIn, you see Cypher Crescent. So it's something that you can see for yourself. And when I speak to him, he hires mathematicians, core mathematicians. He hires core software people and all that. And then maybe 1 or 2 reservoir engineers. So that's another field here that's growing. And why I talk about him is because I asked him when he actually resigned from Shell. He woke up one day and said, you know what, my company needs me. And that was it. He didn't even look back once. And that was because he had nurtured his company as a side hustle for several years until it got to a point where, he was struggling to, of course, manage the 2 of them because his company was becoming quite big. And then he left, and his company has grown since then. So when you talk about how do you manage it, you have to have that internal push, that internal zeal, that personal drive, that motivation to be able to say, this is what I want for myself, right? And of course, the skills. Now, that's one example of somebody with hard technical skills. I also have some colleagues who have started NGOs. I know a colleague of mine who started an NGO, for example, and some of them even start very, very young. The only guidance I would give is that you cannot, 2 things I would say. Number 1, you cannot allow your side hustle to take precedence over the job that you are doing because you end up losing both of them. That's the first thing. You must, I think Ihuaku said it earlier, you must remain professional at all times. That's the first thing. The second thing is you cannot set up a company that is competing with the company that you are working for. So I can't be working for Shell, for example, and then be setting up a company that is in the oil and gas industry or consulting for a company that is oil and gas. No. Those 2 things are completely no-nos. You would lose your job if you do that. I mean, if my colleague Tango Egbe was working for Schlumberger, for example, then that would be an issue for him because Schlumberger is in the business of software for the oil and gas industry, and he's also doing the same thing. So that would have been a competition between the 2 of them, and he would have found it very, very challenging. In fact, it's an integrity issue. But Shell is not an industry. It's not a software company. So he was able to continue that and set up his own company. So it's really all about knowing where your skills are. I have a colleague that left that left Shell and set up a nightclub. A nightclub with a restaurant and bar and everything. Very big one for that matter. It just depends. I really admire and envy, in a way, people who have that entrepreneurial spirit. So I'll stop by saying, if you have something else that you call it a side hustle, whether it's making clothes, making hair, buying and selling, even if it's software, even if it's teaching, coaching, you name it. If you have it, start it. Start small. Don't wait for the company to have 10,000 followers. Start small and then do it on the side until you get to a point where you have multiple streams of income. That's where we want to find ourselves. So I would encourage anybody to go that route if they're able to manage it, because it's very, very, very demanding. Thank you.
Wow, thanks for that encouragement. That's quite inspiring, Oji. Thank you for that. Still in the interest of time, or maybe a Princess, could we take one question from the participants and then we'll move into the 3rd round of the pre-registered questions. Over to you, Princess.
Thank you, Elise. Just a minute. A number of the questions have been answered, but there's this one that was put for Rita. Let me just locate that. Okay. Okay.
We also have a hand up from Promise. So while you're looking for that, maybe Promise can raise up.
Yes. So Promise, please, very, sweet, short, and, straight to the point. No stories, please. Thank you. Unmute yourself now.
Okay, thank you very much. Good day, everyone. My question is directed at Mrs. Rita, but any other person can add to it. I just got the parts about entrepreneurship in general, but I want to ask specifically about entrepreneurship within oil and gas companies, or any company, basically. So I think Mrs. Rita has had some patents. How does that work when you develop a product or you build something and you have a patent for it while with a company, is it yours? So for example, if that product is making money for the company, obviously, are you also making money from the sale or use or service of that product? So how does entrepreneurship or intrapreneurship within a company works?
Okay, so promise, if it's entrepreneurship, you can follow up with OG. But if it's about the patent that I filed them within Schlumberger as a Schlumberger employee, and I'm the author of the patent, but the assignee is Schlumberger. So if anybody is going to use that patent, of course, the fact is they are going to pay Schlumberger for it, and then Schlumberger can always contact me to pay me my percentage of it, something like that. So I'm not entirely the owner of it, because Schlumberger was the one that got the lawyers that helped me review my patent, that went through the process of sending it, getting approvals and all of that, editing it and all. Now, if you do it outside of a company, if you do it as yourself, like let's say I do a research and I find out something and I go and apply for a patent, all proceeds go to me. Everything, anytime anybody uses it and they have to pay for it, everything goes to me. So so that's the difference between when it is done by you, the whole process, or when a company helps you to get your patent.
Okay, thank you, Rita, for that. So we'll move into the third round of the pre-registered questions in the interest of time, and you'd see most of these questions around, your personal well-being, soft skills, expanding your knowledge through education, and all that. So right now, the first question is directed at Ezinne. This is around managing mental health during job search. This will be an interesting one. So I'm looking forward to your response, Ezinne.
Hi, LSC. Managing mental health during a job search, right? One thing that I can tell you for free is that it's not easy for anybody in this world to take rejection, okay? Rejection is something that you need to learn to deal with. You're going to have rejection in so many parts, not just your life, not just the job searching, right? So what happens when you're going to look for a job? If today you haven't started that process, I want you to just make up your mind today and understand that somebody telling you no does not mean that you don't have what it takes, okay? You have to today just accept that, look, I might apply for 10 jobs and they might not get back to me. That's number one. Number two, you need to also know that failure, in fact, someone posted something on LinkedIn I was reading a couple of days ago, and my comment was like, failure is a prelude to success, right? Most successful people in this world, they did not get there just at one time, right? So you just accept again that the first 20 or 50 applications might not land me a job. And secondly, when you don't get that job, it doesn't mean that you're not good enough. It just means that be honest with yourself that one is either you're not a fit for that job or they found somebody better than you, right? It's okay. It's okay. You can't be the best in the world, right? So just know that sometimes someone might be better than you that got the job, and just accept it. I'm not the best. Somebody is better and I'm better than somebody else. And the next thing you have to do is you need to be objective, okay? When I say be objective, that means that you need to assess yourself as a third person, okay? Have somebody look at your CV. You've been applying and nobody's getting back to you. You're getting depressed. Reach out to someone, reach out to an expert, check online for free CV reviews. There's CV know-how, there's top CV. I don't know, there are quite a few of them. Send your CV there. Usually within 48 hours, they'll give you a review on your CV. First, they don't know you, but they're going to read your CV, because when you apply for a job, the recruiter does not know you. They're looking at a piece of paper and they're going to make up your mind based on that piece of paper. So even if you're the most intelligent person in this world and you don't put yourself out there in the best way that suits the particular job, then you might not get noticed. So don't get upset about it. It doesn't mean that you're not smart or anything, right? So it just means that you need to improve your CV. And the third thing is that before you apply for a job, think. I know some students just go, you just put your CV, any job, you just send the CV, send CV, send CV. Go through the job details. What are they looking for? Okay, it's very important. When you look at the job and you see what they're looking for, go to your CV and say, okay, how many of my skills do I have that match this job? And some of them I might have, I didn't even put up in that CV. You edit your CV and you bring it out. You shouldn't have one CV you used to apply to 20, 30 jobs. You can't. It's impossible, right? So you have to also make sure that you're improving yourself. And finally, if you do your assessment and you feel like there's a gap, I saw somebody asking about, if you need an advanced degree and all these things. If you've done an objective assessment and you feel like there's a knowledge gap, oh, I keep looking for a job for experienced reservoir engineer, and they say there that a prerequisite is you must know how to use 3D software like Petrel or Eclipse, and you don't have it. Of course, every time you're going to get rejected. So try and look for how can you bridge that gap. If it's skills that are not technical, you can go to Coursera, you can go to Udemy. If they are technical skills, go to SPE. There's so much information on SPE. Locally in Nigeria, SPE worldwide, there's so many technical sessions that are happening, and just improve yourself. Just understand that the job application is a process. Okay, it's not the first job you apply to that you're going to get hired, right? Thank you.
Wow, thank you for that, Ezinne. That really brings it home. And I see Rita's comment on the chat box where she said she was rejected by 5 schools before she got, accepted for her PhD. Just recently as well, I watched a YouTube video of a lady called Deshelna Baber. I would post her name in here. Please go in and watch that. She was rejected 6 times before she failed 6 times before she became Miss USA or something like that. So there's always a story behind every success, and we shouldn't think that just by one attempt that would reach our dreams. So thank you for that, Ezinne. So the next question is directed towards OG. This is around how do companies really accommodate people with disabilities? How is that done in the oil and gas industry? Are there examples you can give?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I have seen, and I can talk authoritatively about my experience, at least in Shell. I have a blind colleague. She comes into the office with someone who helps her, like a guide, but she's blind, and her situation is set up such that she can function in that way. I have a colleague who is in a wheelchair, for example, and I even have a colleague that was completely paralyzed. She didn't start out by being paralyzed, but as time went on, something happened, and then she lost her ability to walk. I think she lost her movement from the shoulder down or something, from the waist down or something. But she worked in Shell for many, many years until, unfortunately, she passed away for something else last year. May her soul rest in peace. But indeed, I think that in the oil industry, especially nowadays, that whole thing about having an equal opportunity employer is very strong. In fact, it's so strong now that, there's a way that they're actually cutting those kind of people. They would actually go out of their way to say, we have to make sure that everyone who is qualified, regardless of their physical impediments, can be part of this company. So I've seen several. Of course, in a company of thousands of people, there may not be thousands of such examples, but there will be some of them. And I'm sure if I give my other colleagues an opportunity to say something similar, they may have other examples of those kind of things. So indeed, it is possible, especially with the international oil companies these days. Thank you.
Yeah. I don't know if any other panelist has something to add to that. Otherwise, we'll move to the next question. So this question is around female working in the oil and gas industry. We have females in our panels, as part of our panelists, all females. But this question is directed to Ezinne. If you could give us, your insight or share some experience on how to thrive as a female in the oil and gas industry.
Hi, LSC. Thank you very much. So being a female in the oil and gas industry, it has its ups and it has its downs. Okay, so one thing you need to know, just like OG mentioned, right? Because of the fact that the oil and gas industry, it's male dominated, a lot of companies are putting the policies in place to hire females. So what does that mean? You might go for a job interview and they said, okay, we want to hire 5 people and one of them must be a woman, and you are the only woman that passed that. You are the only woman that passed the exam and the interview. You're lucky already, right? So that can be an advantage, right? Because you're kind of like the minority, but you don't need to let that define you, okay? Because if you let it define you, that you got that job because you're a woman, or you got that job because of your looks during the interview, you're going to struggle. You need to have substance to yourself. So let me tell you, when you work in the oil and gas industry, it's a male dominated field. You have to learn to be strong. If you're not strong as a female, meaning if a man tells you say, no, stop, this is not the way, you keep quiet. Some people are brought up like that, right? In some families in Nigeria especially, it's considered respectful that when a man speaks, as a woman you keep quiet. So it's not your fault. Mentally, you might have already, you might be in that frame of mind. But today, if you find out that you cannot speak up, right, against your peers or male, and you're planning to come in the oil and gas industry, I will encourage you to start working on yourself mentally and doing some coaching. Why? Because you're coming to a male dominated field and you need to be you and let your voice be heard, right? Because men sometimes, if you see when men argue, right? Everybody wants their voice to be heard. They are shouting, they are talking over each other. Everybody whose voice is the loudest, right? And if you're not someone that you want to say something, they are going to always put you down. And you find out that you might even have an idea, and you might say, okay, I'll talk to my colleague after the meeting. You go and tell your colleague, oh, I think this is how we can do that. That colleague will take your idea and turn it into something else, and you're not going to get the recognition. So what I want to tell you is that be strong. Don't be scared to let your voice be heard. And secondly, you need to work hard to prove yourself. When you come in, especially if you work in the oil and gas, if you're a woman, they start assessing you before you even start to know, okay, where is this person coming from? Is she intelligent? Or, okay, she's even fine. It could be, maybe she got the job because she's fine. Or is she even related to the MD? I'm telling you, you're being assessed, but this doesn't particularly happen to a man. So why just make up your mind that, look, I'm going to work hard and I'm going to prove myself. If your colleagues are failing, the men are doing whatever they want to do, no, just know that being a woman, you need to work twice as hard. Do not let your guard down. Don't mess with your integrity. That's what I'll tell most of the women, young girls here on this chat. If you're here, please don't mess with your integrity. Okay? When I say don't mess with your integrity, that means be professional. Whatever you want to do outside your workplace, do it. But when you come to your workplace, don't let people know you for a particular thing, right? In terms of being stigmatized because you feel like the way to the top is by sleeping with somebody. No, it might get you that job. That manager will promote you, but the next manager is not going to promote you, and eventually everybody will know that this is how you get your promotion. So keep your integrity, right? As a female, and know that you are more than your looks. There are going to be challenges. Have a coach, have a mentor. Look at all of us here. We're all female, right? We've been in the industry for 15 years, 20 years. Look for a mentor, a female, someone that can relate to you, that you can talk to, so that when you have that kind of situation, you feel that you're in a compromising situation, you feel you need advice, talk to someone who's been through it and they can advise you. At least talk to 1 or 2 people. Yeah, but make sure that you select a good mentor. Okay.
All right.
Alice,
Thank you
sorry,
so
I'm trying
much,
to say so
Ezinne.
much
Yeah.
in a short amount of time.
Rita, please, I will come to you. I know you want to speak on this same subject, but one of our panelists has a hard stop at 3. And first, I would like to apologize that we are going to be overrunning our time, but let OG speak on a few things with regards to effective networking. What are the opportunities with regards to effective networking, as well as the role of SPE in facilitating students' research and innovation.
Okay, thanks. And I sincerely want to apologize for having to run off. I'm being pulled in a different direction now, and I'm going to be very quick. So, and the two items are actually quite related. In terms of networking, I've already posted some links to the SPE International and SPE Lagos section where you can have opportunities like this, where you can meet with industry professionals and all that. Currently, even the Lagos section board is looking for volunteers, is looking for members to come join us. So please update, and I'm sure by the time before we finish, Princess and LSE will tell you ways of joining SPE. SPE has been a blessing to me in terms of networking. In fact, when I joined SPE, my sole purpose of joining SPE was to network, and this is over 10 years later, and I'm still with SPE. So there are so many opportunities. I talked about being the chairman of this Lagos board. We've had so many opportunities, both face to face before the lockdown and online. So I encourage you to use those tools. In terms of SPE facilitating students' research and innovation, that's another area. SPE speaker source, and online, the paper, the one Petro where you have all the papers. When I get any topic or I change jobs within my company, the first thing I do is go and look for the SPE papers that are relevant to that. I read up on what other people are doing. I read up on the research and so on and so forth before I even start putting pen to paper to try to solve problems. So those things are all very, very available for students. In fact, I think it's even free of charge. You have all the opportunities that we didn't have in our time coming up in the industry. So the sky is really your limit. I sincerely apologize again. I have to run off. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Oji. It was really nice having you join us and share your insight. Thank you. All right, so we'll carry on, and I'll just let Rita speak a bit more about, being a woman in the oil and gas industry.
Okay, LSC, what I wanted to add to what Ezinne said, because Ezinne has covered it, extensively, is just that I noticed that women tend to shortchange themselves. When I wanted to go for my promotion as the principal, I found out that the reason why I was afraid to put in my papers was because I did not feel I was good enough. I felt that I needed to have accomplished 20 things, 30 things before I can even put in my paper. And then a friend of mine just said one word. She said, just aspire and just try it. And if you fail, you failed. And I gathered all my things together, put in my papers for promotion. And another lady now called me and she said, look, the people you are competing with, their guys, they will just, they are not going to spend time looking at them, or they're going to focus on yours. So you're going to update yours. And she guided me on how to update my document, my application, and that was it. So women, we try to want to make everything perfect, right? This thing has to be perfect. Guys don't wait for it. Guys feel, look, I have been here for 3 years, 5 years. I need to get that promotion. I'm going for it. So I will encourage ladies to not be afraid. Just try and aspire, and you're able to reach anywhere you want to be. Thank you. Sorry, that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, no, that was a brilliant contribution, Rita. So thank you for that. So without it seeming like we're just focusing on women right now, so this other question is with regards to, how can we be successful, as an employee, or be a relevant employee in whichever company or firm that we're currently working. And I'm directing this to Ihuaku.
Sorry, Alessi, please repeat that question again.
Okay, so the question says, how can one be a successful and relevant employee? And I guess in any industry or firm. I know it's quite vague, but yes, if you could attempt to respond.
Okay, so all we have said today is it's a key to becoming a better and relevant or successful employee. You have to be a relevant professional. You have to be someone that brings value first before you can be an employee and then contribute some to the organization, right? But one key thing I want us to take away is that we need to be aware of our environment, right? Because when we talk about being an employee, it means that you are you're working for a particular company in a particular subsection of the industry, and you are required to bring a particular set of skills of value at that particular time. So you need to be aware of what is happening in your environment at all times. You need to know when to how to navigate that environment as well. Ezinne just talked about men. When they argue, they like to they like to raise their voices, right? I remember when I started going to the rig, the very few hitches I had, I realized that I couldn't really. Sometimes I was the only woman on a rig of 98 people, 98 men, 100 and something men, and I found it really difficult to talk to them. Right? Sometimes I needed help, move my tool basket, make space for me to put my unit, or help me run a cable. I found it difficult, right? But I realized that if you're able to meet these people in the informal hours, right, at the galley, you say hi, how is your family? By the time they start bringing out their wallets, showing me their kids, and I started to talk more at the galley and in the canteen and in the what's the lounge room, right? It became easier for me to say, hey, Ricky, I need this basket moved from here to here, right? So you need to be totally aware of your environment. That will determine what you need to do. This is what we're doing now, is for us to start turning our mindset towards learning. You have to be ready to learn as fast as possible and to adapt to what is happening. You will notice that now a lot of people are losing their jobs, right? But it didn't just start today. You need to be able to tell what is the culture of this organization, right? What if they are going to let people go, or if they're going to promote someone, what will be the criteria that they're going to use to do this, right? So you need to see where you have a gap between the criteria and all that, and then you work on it. So be aware of your environment. That will help you to be a successful and relevant employee. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ihuaku, for that. And just to add to that, a follow-up question for you is, what is your advice? What are the opportunities for students with low grades? You know, there's a lot of talk around, you know, some firms giving minimum requirements. You must have a 2-1, you know, and these days it's even getting important that you must have a master's degree. So what are the opportunities for people with low grades? You know, what can they do to update themselves as well?
So there are ways to boost your CV, right? I think Ezinne mentioned it. When you go online, you will see what is required, and you compare yourself. If you typically, what most candidates do when they have low grades in their bachelor's level is to go for their master's, and you realize that most recruiters, when they have a requirement for a master's degree, they are typically not looking at what your grade was in the first degree, right? Another way is to be able to showcase what you have done. Some people didn't get a low grade because they are not able to study and pass exams, right? Maybe they had other issues when they were in school, and that's what resulted in the low grade. So when you know you have this, it makes it even more important for you to do one of the points I listed in my presentation about widening your connections, volunteering, teaching, writing papers. When you submit papers, they never ask you, did you get a first class before we accept your paper? No. But if you come to the interview room and say, look, I have this paper for SPE, for AAPG, I taught this class, there were 100 students in my class, I have done this over several months, trust me, the recruiter will sit up and listen to you, right? These days is no longer about, I know that there are requirements, right? I know that the number of people that apply for jobs are huge, right? So for a recruiter, it's a software that actually filters people out before you actually come to the interview room. So maybe the software will filter you out. But if you do showcase yourself, if you do become relevant in your own corner, for sure, a connection is going to be. I've had people that had low grades in my interview rooms and they did exceptionally well, right? Remember that anybody that's going to hire you and knowing that you have a low grade, the person has to be able to defend that decision before the management or before the organization, right? So it's not just that they are helping you or they are being wicked. They need to be able to say, this guy is going to be able to bring value. So it's on you to showcase the value you bring, regardless of your low degree or your low scores. Thank you.
Thank you, Ezinne, for that. So for me, what I take out of it is make it easy for the recruiter to defend you when they decide to hire you, really. So make it easy for them by showcasing yourself. Okay, I see there are a few hands up. Okay, Ezinne, yeah, please unmute yourself and you could add to the question.
Yeah, thank you very much. In fact, you called, it seems you knew I wanted to speak because you, instead of saying Ihuaku, you called my name. So I'm just responding to your prompt.
Oh my
But
goodness. Oh, my apologies for that.
no, but what Ihuaku said is so true. And I want to add something, right, on the platform of the difference between a fresh graduate and a new hire. So I'm also a very practical person, right? And Ihuaku has told you the truth, but also if you're coming in as a fresh graduate, there is a minimum requirement. If you came out with a third class, you're not going to go for a job interview. I can tell you, it doesn't matter what you've done as a fresh graduate because you haven't proven yourself. This is the truth of the matter. And it's sad. Maybe there was some issue that led you to have a third class, even a second class lower. Most companies do not take. Some companies do, but some of the top oil and gas companies, they won't. It's 2-1 first before they even listen to you. So if you are a fresh graduate, right, and unfortunately something happened and you didn't get good grades, go and look for how you can do your masters or something. Even if you cannot travel, start with Nigeria. Go to Unilag, go to Uniport, go to UI, go and do your masters. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck and you're going to get very, very frustrated, right? But if you're experienced, I've seen people that are experienced, like 10 years ago, people didn't used to check, do you have a master's? Today, even master's is a prerequisite for some jobs. So if you're experienced, is a different ball game. And in that case, it's really dependent on what you know, as Ihuaku said. And you make sure that when you go to the interview, you smash beyond everybody else, right? So that's just what I wanted to add.
Thank you, Ezinne. Apologies to Ihuaku for doing that. So this basically feeds perfectly with the next question, which is around postgraduate education. What is the advice? And I'm sure a lot of people that even have high grades can also benefit from this advice. And this is directed to Rita.
Okay. So when we're talking about postgraduate education, one of the things that I would just say is, why do I want this postgraduate education? What's your reason? Because there's MBA, there's MSc, there's PhD, there's PGD. So for whichever one you want, why? So you just ask yourself why. What is the reason? Now, a very good reason is to improve on your grades, like we just talked about. And another reason is, okay, I need additional knowledge. Let it be technical, that I need to help me to get into this oil and gas industry, especially if you know that the education you had back in school was not sufficient. If it's an MBA, okay, I have this passion for, developing business, entrepreneurship, or leading people, and I just want to get this kind of additional skill from there. So understand which one you're going for and choose accordingly. Of course, all these things are expensive, be it locally or internationally. You're spending money, so you want to make the right decision. So the other thing I will now say is you need to understand the requirements of the schools you want to apply to. And when I was applying for my postgraduate studies, the requirements for Oklahoma was different from from Texas A&M, was different from UT. So for all these universities, you need to understand what are they looking for. Some people will want GRE, and I hear that very soon GRE will be scrapped. But imagine me in old age with how many children. In fact, I was actually pregnant when I wrote my GRE. You have to go and get those things ready, because if the school says you need GRE, you need to get it. And don't go and get a score that is, if they say they will say there's no minimum, right? But I mean, you are competing with some people that are getting 170 over 170 in quantitative. So you just need to advise yourself. You cannot just go and decide to get 130 as a result, okay? So understand their requirements. Then funding. Funding is very important, because if anything you're doing is going to be quite expensive. So understand, if you want to do a program and you go to the school's website, you see a supervisor that has funding, let's say in EOR, but meanwhile it's drilling engineering that you're interested in, and drilling engineering does not have funding. It's either you're not going to do that program, or you just settle yourself with where funding is, if you know you don't have the money. But if you have the money, pay your way through and go and do what you want to do, okay? Yes, so the other thing I say, so if it's outside Nigeria, prepare. If it's GMAT, you need to do GRE, TOEFL, IETSL, all those things, just get them prepared. And especially when you're finishing school, your brain is hot. You're not thinking of life's problems. Just start preparing all those things and keep. GRE lasts for about 5 years. TOEFL, 2 years. So you have time to just write these things and keep and prepare for postgraduate studies. Then I would say seek guidance from people, from mentors. You know, a lot of people say they don't have mentors. It's not true. Look out. There are people that are ready to mentor you. Seek guidance from people that have walked that path that you have walked, that can advise you. Then another important thing in preparing for graduate studies, when they tell you to put your application, they say put a statement of purpose. And you need to have that write-up that differentiates you from another person. It's beyond your CV. And you know, in this particular case, they are not looking for people who have work experience per se, unless it's one of these executive MBAs where they say, okay, they want people that have some experience that can add value. So you want to be able to differentiate yourself. And guess what helps you differentiate yourself? Volunteering. You are able to do this, you are able to do that, you are able to do X, Y, Z. Those are the things that help them understand that you're not just all book, that you're able to mix with people, you're able to work with teams, you're able to work in research teams, you're not going to blow up their lab, you're normal and you're okay. So those are the kind of things that will help you. Okay, so you work on your CV, Ezinne has talked about that. You work on your statement of purpose, get people to review it and advise you so that it's compelling. Develop other areas of yourself. You know, sometimes they like to see that someone has very good skills in sports, someone has very good skills in art, somebody is a musician and all of that. You're a writer, put all of those things in your SOP, in addition to your technical skills. And then for those of you that are still in school, when you want to do your project, don't go and copy somebody's project. And we are developing correlation for Niger Delta. Go online, research for topics that are relevant and do your project on that. Because when you are writing your SOP or you want to say, I want to do further research in this, they want to know what you did. Was it actually a research or were you just going to reproduce somebody's work and writing a literature review? Okay. So those are the few things that I would say with regards to postgraduate education. Just as to summarize, know what your reason for it is, and then get all the relevant information or exams that you need to do to prepare for it. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Rita, for that. I think there's also one last question for you. And, you know, you've worked in the industry, you're currently in academia, you had to actually resign, you know, from your job to pursue your academic goals. So the question is around how can we foster that collaboration between the industry and the academia?
Okay, so collaboration between the industry and academia is not something that we as individuals have that much power over. It's something that, you know, starting from even from the government level, do we have government that promotes R&D and funds R&D? Then, of course, we have NMPC R&D that has been doing certain projects. If you go to their website, you even find out some of the things they do. And they've tried to partner with certain companies. I remember when I was in Schlumberger, they had a project that they were working with Schlumberger on R&D. So we have those kind of initiatives, but in my own opinion, I think they are not enough. Then the industry, the industries are not, we don't have many Nigerian-based companies. So these other companies are, let's say, coming from France, coming from US, here and there. So if they have any research that they want to do, they are going to take it back home, right? Because they believe that they have the expertise over there. So it is now left for the academia to be able to prove that they are sufficient, that they are able to do these kind of things that are done outside of Nigeria. It means that they are developing the capacity properly. Their curriculum is appropriate. They have the tools, they have the labs. And then when they have demonstrated that they're able to, then they go and knock on the doors of these industry people that, look, we have XYZ set of people that can do your research on your PVT, that can help you understand properties of your fluid, that can help you understand how best to drill your wells, can help you understand how to solve your flow assurance issues. These people will do your research. And then that's when we can now do some collaborations. And we also encourage the upcoming companies within Nigeria, because a lot of these are coming up too. How can they collaborate with the universities? If the industries from the big industries are not doing it, let the smaller companies within Nigeria try to collaborate with the academia. And I think that will help the students as well to solve real problems.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Rita. And that basically wraps up the pre-registered questions. We've actually overshot our time, and I would like to appreciate our panelists for still staying back to ensure that most of our questions have been answered. I believe that a lot of the questions posted in the chat box have been answered already, except if there are any further comments. Princess, please could you let us know?
Okay, Elise, there are not many comments left, but I would like to say that this conversation would continue on social media. That's why we have shared all our handles. I'm sure they will still have questions beyond this, but our panelists will be tagged and they will still be able to, give answers to your questions. And also we have dropped the email of the section, so that if you'd like to connect with our panelists and ask very direct questions, then we'll be able to take it beyond the session.
Okay, all right. Thanks, thanks so much, Princess. So in the interest of time, I would like to go around, and just ask you, what are your final words for the students, or if you still have time, if you want us to take some more questions, it's up to you. But for me, it would be more around, what are your final words? What is that one thing that you would want the students to take out of these of this session, if they have forgotten any other thing but that one thing? And I would also like to say, if you have your video on, please turn it off, and so we can focus on the session. And I'm speaking to Akin, okay, he's turned it off. All right, so I think I will let Rita go first on this. What are your final words? Akin Boye, please, could you turn off your video, or Princess, could you ask him to leave? Thank you. Rita, please, over to you.
Okay, my final words is more than one sentence, please, LSE. Okay.
Good.
So to recap,
and my apologies, Rita, and maybe as we give our final words, maybe we just have only the speaker, the person speaking, have their video turned on, so we could get a good snapshot of them, giving their final words, if you may indulge me. Thank you.
Okay. So what I would say to the students, to the young professionals, is understand who you really are. I am somebody that I knew that I always wanted to pursue academia. So it's something that I just had to, understand about myself, and that is how I have charted my career. I would say, be consistent with who you are. Let anybody that sees you say, this is somebody that I know is an entrepreneur. This person wants to do entrepreneurship, okay? So be consistent with who you are. If you're someone that wants to be and in academia, let everyone just know about it, because when opportunities like that arise, they'll be able to contact you for it. Always try to aspire to be much more than where you are currently. Find a mentor that will help you and to direct you. So many people have passed through what you're going through and are ready to help you. Now, your journey is unique. If you are not where you expected to be or where you hope to be, don't give up on yourself. Just continue to take little steps in the direction that you want to take, okay? That where you want to go, just continue to take little steps. One day, everything will fall in place, and all of these things you're passing through will just be like history. Specifically for ladies, you can have a fulfilling career as a wife, a mother. So I don't want you to shortchange yourself. After 5 years in school, you now say, look, I just want to go and be a wife because I cannot balance my life. You can balance your career and be who you truly are. And for the guys, I would just say, please learn to support the women as well around you. Most of you end up being fathers to daughters. Don't tell them that they cannot be engineers or that they cannot be good enough. Support them. And I just want people to know that we as SPE, we love you. We care so much about you people. We want to help you people. And so don't hesitate to reach out to us if you have questions, you need somebody to talk to, etc. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rita, for those very nice final words. So we'll move on to Ezinne. Please turn on your video, and Rita, please switch off. And then Ezinne, you can go ahead and give your final words.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you and we can see you as well.
You can see me as well. Okay, good. I wasn't sure. So Rita has actually covered a lot of things, so I'm not going to beat around the bush. What do I want to have to add to that? So one thing that I said earlier in my introduction is that you need to maximize any opportunity that you have, okay? So many times if you go on LinkedIn, you see people saying, oh, there's a free webinar, there's a free training, there's this and that. Somebody is taking the pain to put together that free program for you. So maximize the opportunity. Even if you were not a petroleum engineer, you attended this course as an example, because I know people that reached out to me on LinkedIn that have no business with the industry, but they still made the time and effort. And you learned something along the way, right? So all my major leaps in my career have actually happened during downturns, right? So most of my big promotions came in a downturn and at a point where I didn't expect to make that leap, right? And just by taking that opportunity and making the best of it, you create, new opportunities for yourself. And as Rita said, keep improving yourself, right? We're all work in progress. Learning is a lifelong thing. When you go to look for a job, remember that an employer is viewing you the same way, somebody goes to the market to buy a good, right? They're looking for the one that is the most attractive and appealing to them. And that's how it is when you go job hunting. So you have to make yourself, and when I say attractive and appealing, I don't mean physically, because we're not in the beauty industry, right? But when I say making yourself attractive and appealing, that means that, for example, how have I brushed up my CV? What am I doing that is adding value to myself, right? Apart from the fact that you graduated with a first class, how else are you engaging yourself, right? Nobody is too big or too small to help others or to share knowledge. So make sure that you fill your life with things that set you apart, and make yourself attractive to an employer, right? Because if during this downturn you took the pains, you say, oh, I was at home for 4 months, but instead of just sitting at home, I've done this training, I've done this and that, the employer already sees you as a potential, candidate for employment, because it shows that you're very versatile and you keep innovating yourself. And finally, as Rita said, myself, I have 3 kids. I have three grown kids. Rita, you heard that she has 4 kids. OG has 2 kids. So we're all women. We have a family. We have husbands. We have kids. So we have to maintain that balance, and it's not going to be easy. And honestly, there are going to be times that, you know, you will feel like it's a little bit much, and there will also be times that, you know, everything will be going great. But the most important thing is to have a partner that supports you, right? Whether you're single now or you're looking at getting married, you know, make sure that, you know, you and your partner, you are aligned. Because if you're not aligned with your vision, you're going to have issues, right? If tomorrow you say, oh, you know, I think I really want to go and do a master's because, you know, I'm not happy with this, my first degree, or I want to move into data analytics and I want to further my degree. And the partner is saying, why? You don't need to go to school, it's enough. Why are you working? After all, we are going to get married. You need to think. It's not that it's a bad thing, right? There's a place for everything, but you need to make up your mind and say, okay, am I going to be happy to sit at home and be a housewife to somebody else, or do I require a career? And same thing for the men, right? When you get into the industry tomorrow, you marry somebody's child, right? And then, you know, you tomorrow she's trying to pursue her career, and you feel, no, you want to be offshore, you want to do 8 weeks offshore, 2 weeks onshore, and you don't care about your family. It might be fine, you make a lot of money, but the issue is that you start creating a hole in your family, you know, and tomorrow when you don't have that job, you don't have anything to fill it up, right? So work-life balance is very important. Your family is very important. So please, as you start your careers, make sure you keep it, you know, make sure you network, as I said, connect with SPE and do as much as you can. You will meet amazing people, you know, and you're not going to regret it. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ezinne, for that. And then definitely not the least, would have Ihuaku give us her own final thoughts.
I'm not sure there's anything else to say, but the ladies have said it all. The past 2.5 hours has been amazing. If there was one thing I want you to take away, is for you to be intentional about building your career. Don't wait to stumble into things or to stumble into opportunities. Look for those opportunities, chase them, and you will definitely find them. And don't forget to leverage the internet. The internet is key to the next set of careers that we're going to have in future. You can do lots of things on it, right? So thank you everyone for attending. It was an amazing time. Thank you for your questions and for your comments, and go have an amazing adventure as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Ihuaku, for that final comments. Can I please have all our panelists please turn on their videos again? So I would like to say thank you so much, you know, to all of our panelists for sharing their insights, their experiences, their thoughts. This has been truly inspiring, even for me. You know, I could imagine for a lot of the other participants online as well. So thank you for taking out time to give back, you know, to the society. And I'm hoping that these people that have listened to you today, one day, maybe 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, will be able to come up and also give back the way that you have given to them as well. So thank you also to our wonderful participants. Thank you. You have been awesome. You have really, you know, been quite engaging. You have made this session truly an experience, a good experience for everyone, just by obeying and adhering to the meeting etiquette. So I'd like to say thank you. Thank you for being part of us since the beginning of this training, from Monday all the way to this day. And I would just say, you know, keep striving, you know, like has been said, you know, nothing lands on your table. You have to be intentional about everything that you do. You have to have a clear vision and a goal, and of course then map out how you want to get there through your actions. Please, if you have your video on, please turn it off. SN, kindly turn off your video, please. And right now, I will hand over to my co-host if she has any final words, and then before we wrap up fully. Princess, over to you.
Thank you very much, LEC, and thank you, our panelists. I learned a lot myself. I wanted to make a comment. Rita talked about volunteering. when I started volunteering with SPE Lagos section, in my cover letter, I would just write, I volunteered in producing newsletters. And then in my cover letter, I just put the link to the newsletter there. And that was just like easy marketing to show what I had done. So it has been a very impactful session, and I really appreciate all the panelists and even LEC for such wonderful moderation. Many people would like to know how to connect with SPE. Please, there have been links that have been put in the chat section, but we would also send follow-up emails to everyone who registered so that you can connect. Please also connect with our panelists on LinkedIn, and as been advised, please keep it professional. We are all professionals. So please take note of future events. There'll be so many exciting member benefit programs that will still be created by SPE. So please let us connect. There'll be updates even on social media on today's session. So keep the conversation coming. Are there more questions that you would have? Then you would meet our panelists also to address your questions. So thank you very much, LSC.
Okay, thank you, Princess. Franklin, please could you turn off your video, or Princess, please, you know what to do. We have OG join us back, good timing, and I'll leave it to you to give us your final words, and then it would be a wrap for the session.
Okay, thank you, LSE. It's my pleasure to host such brilliant and accomplished ladies in the oil industry. Just the other day, I was, someone approached me and says, oh, talking about mentorship, and one of the biggest challenges here is not having role models to look up to, whether female or there are many men in the industry, but having like real good moral models to look up to. And my mind came to this panel, and of course, I am sure the listeners who have stayed with us for this long will also agree with me that it has been worth our while. We've learned a lot. We've been improved as a result. And of course, the conversation continues. I just want to thank my panelists. I know some of you are in different parts of the world. You made out time, you've left your families, you've left your patents and your PhDs and jobs and families and everything, and you've come to join Lagos section. I really, really sincerely appreciate it. LSE and Princess, of course, my two moderators, you guys are pillars of professionalism. I can't express just how thankful I am. I'm grateful for the creativity, professionalism, the intelligence that you bring to the table. So I just want to say thank you, and I wish the rest of us a good rest of the day and a good weekend. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. And finally, we have feedback forms which you would receive in your emails. Please take some time and tell us, how we can improve on future sessions, and how your entire experience was for this session. So thank you, and enjoy the rest of the weekend. Bye.